In the vast universe of personalities, there exists a type so rare, so complex, that it often feels like they live in an entirely different dimension. The INFJ, known as the advocate, the counselor, or the seer, this type represents less than 1% of the population. But they are not defined by their rarity. They are defined by the silent wars they fight every single day, wars the world never sees. To the casual observer, an INFJ might appear composed, even serene. They're the person who listens more than they speak, who seems wise beyond their years, and whose presence exudes calm. But behind that stillness lies a storm, an inner world of emotional depth, empathy, and intuition that is constantly processing, feeling, and anticipating. What most people don't realize is that the strongest battles the INFJ faces are not external. They're the ones fought within. One of the most profound silent battles an INFJ fights daily is the war of empathy. For most, empathy is a noble trait, feeling for others, caring deeply, showing compassion. But for the INFJ, empathy isn't something they do. It's something they are. They don't just understand what others are feeling, they absorb it. Walking into a room, they can feel the weight of someone's sadness before a word is spoken. They can sense tension, fear, joy, and everything in between, like emotional antennae attuned to invisible frequencies. But this gift is also a curse, because while they're taking on the emotions of everyone around them, they're often neglecting their own. They become emotional mirrors, reflecting the unspoken burdens of others, while silently drowning under the weight of it all. This emotional overload leads to burnout, to a fatigue that sleep cannot cure. And yet, they continue to give, because that's who they are. Another battle the INFJ faces is the perfectionist mindset that quietly erodes their peace. To the world, they might appear relaxed or easygoing, but inside, there's a relentless drive to do things right, to make a difference, to live with meaning, to be the best version of themselves in everything they do. It's not about ego. It's about purpose. Every task, no matter how small, is filtered through a lens of how can this make the world better? This perfectionism isn't about tidiness or control. It's existential. It's a deep-seated need to matter. But when that need becomes overwhelming, it paralyzes. The fear of not doing something perfectly stops them from doing it at all. They procrastinate, not out of laziness, but out of fear. Fear that their work, their effort, their voice will fall short of the standard they've set for themselves. And when they do fall short, as all humans do, they don't just feel disappointment. They feel despair. Loneliness is another invisible battle that follows the INFJ like a shadow. It's not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone. It's the loneliness of being misunderstood. INFJs see the world through a different lens. They perceive layers of meaning in everyday moments. They hear what's not being said. They see patterns where others see chaos. But expressing these insights? That's the hard part. They often feel like they're speaking a different language. Trying to explain their thoughts and feelings can be exhausting, especially when those around them dismiss or simplify what they're trying to say. So they retreat. They smile. They nod. But inside, they long for someone, just one person, who truly gets them. Not just their words, but their soul. Conflict is another terrain where INFJs silently suffer. They are harmony seekers, not because they fear confrontation, but because they feel its impact so deeply. An argument, even a minor one, can echo in their minds for days. Harsh words feel like wounds. Disagreements feel like earthquakes. So they often avoid conflict, not out of weakness, but out of emotional self-preservation. But in doing so, they sometimes sacrifice their own needs. They bite their tongue, suppress their emotions, and carry the weight of unresolved tension just to keep the peace. Over time, this leads to internal pressure, a pressure that builds until it erupts, not in anger, but in exhaustion, in tears, in silence. They are not passive. They are protective of others and of their fragile emotional equilibrium. Perhaps the most haunting battle of all is their relationship with intuition. INFJs are intuitive to the core. They don't just notice details. They absorb patterns, trends, and energies. They sense things long before they happen. They know when someone is lying, when a relationship is about to end, or when a decision will backfire, often before any signs are visible. But this insight can feel like a burden, because knowing doesn't always mean being believed. Often, they speak their truths, only to be ignored, dismissed, or mocked until time proves them right. This creates a painful tension, the desire to help others avoid pain, and the realization that their insight is often unwelcome. They carry warnings they can't deliver, truths they can't prove, and a future they can feel but cannot stop. So how do INFJs survive these silent battles? They retreat into books, into music, into art. Creative expression becomes their oxygen. It's how they release the emotions they've absorbed. It's how they find clarity in the chaos. Journaling, painting, songwriting, or simply daydreaming. These aren't just hobbies. They are survival tools. They also curate their relationships with surgical precision. INFJs don't need a crowd. They need depth. A single meaningful connection is worth more to them than a room full of acquaintances. They seek friendships where silence is comfortable and souls speak louder than words. When they find these rare connections, they cherish them with a loyalty that runs deeper than most can understand. Solitude is another sacred weapon. Not isolation, but intentional solitude. Time alone is how INFJs reset. It's how they separate their emotions from the ones they've absorbed. It's how they reconnect with their core. In solitude, they remember who they are, beneath all the layers the world has piled on them. But even with all these coping strategies, the battles remain. Silent, constant, and invisible. So what can we do for the INFJs in our lives? Start by listening, really listening. Don't just hear their words. Try to understand the space between them. Be patient when they retreat. Respect their need for depth. Don't force them to explain what they feel. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes there are no words for what they're experiencing. And if you're an INFJ, here's what you need to hear. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not alone. Your sensitivity is a gift. Your empathy is a superpower. Your silence speaks volumes. The world may never fully understand your battles, but that doesn't mean they aren't real. That doesn't mean they don't matter. Every day you get up, carry the weight of others, chase purpose over popularity, and still choose kindness. You win. You win your silent battles. And even if no one sees it, I promise you it counts. Keep going. Because somewhere, someone needs the light you carry, even if you carry it in silence.